Natalie Foster sat at the candle-lit table in her wheelchair, her pink dress carefully chosen for this moment at 27. She had been through enough disappointments to recognize the signs, but hope was a stubborn thing. Her friend Claire had arranged this blind date with someone named Marcus. He works in finance. Claire had said, "He's excited to meet you." Natalie had arrived early, as she always did, to ensure the table was accessible. Now she waited, watching the door 20 minutes past the agreed time. Her phone buzzed a message from Claire. "I'm so sorry, Marcus backed out at the last minute. He said he didn't realize you were in a wheelchair." Natalie read the message twice, feeling the familiar sting of rejection. She should have been used to this by now. Accident 3 years ago had changed more than her mobility. It had changed how people saw her. She was gathering her purse to leave when she noticed a man standing nearby. He was in his late 30s, dressed in a dark suit, and he was looking at her with something like recognition. "Excuse me?" he said, approaching carefully. "I don't mean to intrude, but are you waiting for someone?" Natalie hesitated. "I was," she admitted. "But they're not coming." The man's expression shifted to understanding. "Their loss," he said simply. Then he extended his hand. "I'm Christopher Reed, and I was also supposed to meet someone who apparently decided not to show up." Natalie shook his hand. "Natalie Foster." Christopher gestured to the empty chair across from her. "This might be completely inappropriate, but would you mind if I joined you? I've already made the reservation, and eating alone after being stood up feels depressing." Natalie found herself nodding. Christopher sat down, and they both laughed awkwardly. "This is strange," Natalie said. "Completely," Christopher agreed, "but also better than the alternative." They ordered wine and dinner. Christopher explained that his business partner had set him up with someone from his gym. "He thought I needed to get back out there." Christopher said, "My wife passed away 2 years ago, and apparently I've been too focused on work." "I'm sorry about your wife," Natalie said. "Thank you," Christopher replied. "What about you? What's your story?" Natalie told him about the car accident that had left her paralyzed, about rebuilding her life, about her work as a freelance writer. "I'm good at what I do," she said, "but dating has been challenging. People see the wheelchair before they see me." Christopher nodded thoughtfully. "My wife spent the last year of her life in a wheelchair," he said. "Cancer. She used to say the hardest part wasn't the physical limitations. It was how people suddenly treated her like she was fragile or invisible." "Exactly," Natalie said, feeling understood in a way she rarely experienced. They talked through dinner. Christopher shared stories about his daughter Isabel, who was 9 years old. "She's brilliant and stubborn and keeps me honest," he said with obvious affection. Natalie told him about her writing, about the children's book she was working on. "I want to write stories where kids in wheelchairs are just characters having adventures, not inspiration or tragedy." "That sounds important," Christopher said, as dessert arrived. Christopher's phone rang. He glanced at it and his expression changed. "I'm sorry. It's my daughter's school. I need to take this." He stepped away for a few minutes when he returned. He looked apologetic. "Isabel isn't feeling well. I need to go pick her up." "Of course," Natalie said. "I hope she's okay." Christopher paused. "This might be forward, but could I have your number? I'd like to continue this conversation." Natalie gave him her number, trying not to hope too much. 3 days later, Christopher called. "I wanted to apologize for leaving abruptly," he said. "Isabel had a stomach bug. She's fine now." They talked for an hour the next week. They met for coffee, then lunch. Then Christopher invited Natalie to dinner at his home. "I want you to meet Isabel," he said. "If you're comfortable with that." Natalie met his daughter, who was curious and direct. "Why do you use a wheelchair?" Isabel asked. "My legs don't work the way yours do," Natalie explained, "but I can still do most things, just differently. Can you write in your wheelchair?" Isabel asked. "I can," Natalie said. "In fact, I do all my writing in my wheelchair." "That's cool," Isabel decided. Over the months that followed, Natalie and Christopher built something genuine. He never treated her disability as something to overcome or ignore. He asked practical questions about accessibility, about what she needed. "I want to understand your world," he explained. "Not because I pity you, but because I care about you." Natalie found herself falling for him, for his honesty, his kindness. The way he listened to Isabel with full attention, for the way he saw her as a whole person one evening. 6 months after their accidental first date, they sat on Christopher's porch watching the sunset. "I need to tell you something," Christopher said. "Okay," Natalie replied, suddenly nervous. "That night we met, when I saw you sitting alone at that table, I almost walked past," Christopher admitted. "I was so caught up in my own disappointment about being stood up." He took her hand, "But then I saw your face. And I saw strength and dignity and something that made me want to know you. Not because you were in a wheelchair, but because of who you seemed to be." "And was I what you expected?" Natalie asked. "You were so much more," Christopher said. "You've shown me that it's possible to love again. That opening my heart doesn't diminish what I had with my wife. It honors it." "I love you," Natalie said. "I love you too." Christopher replied. They married a year later in a garden ceremony. Isabel was the flower girl and proudly helped Natalie with her chair during the reception. Natalie found Christopher standing by the window. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About Marcus," Christopher said. Natalie was surprised. "My no-show blind date?" "Yes," Christopher replied. "I know it sounds strange, but part of me is grateful he backed out, because it meant you were there that night." Natalie considered this. "I think I'm grateful too," she admitted, "but not because of him, because you chose to see me when you could have walked away." Christopher knelt beside her wheelchair. "I'll always choose to see you," he said. Years later, when people asked how they met, Natalie would tell the truth, that they were both stood up by people who couldn't see past surface judgments that they found each other in mutual disappointment, that sometimes the people who reject us do us the greatest favor, because they clear the path for someone who actually deserves us. The cruelty of being rejected for using a wheelchair still hurt Natalie. Wouldn't pretend otherwise, but it had also taught her something valuable, that she didn't want someone who had to be convinced of her worth. She wanted someone who saw it immediately, someone like Christopher, who looked past the wheelchair to the person who chose to stay when he could have left, who built a life with her that honored both their pasts and embraced their future. Together, they proved that love doesn't require perfect circumstances, just honest hearts and the courage to try. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment about finding unexpected connection in difficult moments.